Uh, yeah, well, hello.
Hi.
So now you're in Berlin, right?
I'm in Berlin.
Maybe you saying that makes me want to ask well, a question that was actually asked by some person from the Shinshijien, actually Tracy. He was saying that you've been a driver of the whole makerspace, let's say, experience, because makerspace is a sort of experience. And it's also a real actualization of things. And so he's asking in what could you in some way predict what would be the next of China throughout maybe the makerspace world, or maybe the makerspace is in a way a bit of an insight into what society is aiming to or at, isn't it?
In some ways good, in some ways bad. And
Yeah,
like makerspace, and as the first word was hackerspace, but whatever you call it,
I usually
it's
call it
about.
hackerspace.
Yeah, I always do too, because that's what it was. There was no word makerspace when I first started getting into this. And, but it's about people coming together and supporting each other to explore and find cool things in their lives. And, the excuse of bringing people together is projects, whether it's tech or art or whatever. And it's been really amazing for people to change their lives in positive ways. Each hackerspace, makerspace, fab lab, whatever to call it, is unique because it's centered around the community of people that started and keep it going and keep all the cool things happening. So people come together in community to support each other and encourage each other to explore and find things that are really cool for each person, really meaningful for each person. And if that happens, then people often find projects that they work on and are excited about it and find it meaningful. Then these are the kind of things that actually useful startups can grow from, because if people find something meaningful, they'll pay, something you do is meaningful, they'll pay you to do it. That's, and that's kind of the cool aspect of startups. But, especially in China, but all
Yeah,
over the world,
I
in
was about
Europe
to
and the
say that.
US, the concept is taken only to make money. And so these places called maker spaces are quite often just places where people are pressured to start a startup, whether or not the project is meaningful or not, and often having nothing to do with art, nothing to do with design, just a way for the investors to get a return on their investment. And that's such a disappointment and such a lost potential for people to be doing something meaningful and wonderful with their time, to share what they do with other people in meaningful ways, and other people find it meaningful, and their lives are enhanced, and everyone gets better as a result. And if it's only about investors getting a return on investment, then maybe something good can come from that, but so much potential is lost in
Lost.
the
Yeah,
process.
for sure. Like, to my feeling, it's like most of the hacker spaces, when they start, there is this pure vibe. The magic happens. But then after a little while, there is all this ecosystem that builds around it, and people coming there just to find ideas or find originality.
Yeah, well, that happens some places more than others. But yeah, like in Shinchajian, all hackerspaces have their ups and downs. And there's the people who really pushed the hackerspace and started the movement, really. Gave a presentation in Germany called Hackerspace Design Patterns, and that was in 2007. And one of their patterns that they saw from looking at hackerspaces that existed up till then, and there were only a few dozen back then, mostly in Germany, but they saw that there's ups and downs in all communities, not just hackerspaces. And if the community is good, they go through the parts that are more down and they work things out and they get to another up again. But people come, people go, things change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but people keep working it out and we keep evolving. And that's part of the process. And as we go through the ups and the downs, if the community is good, we get closer, we're more bonded, we're more functional, we're able to do more cool things and work things out better. And we can share all that with other communities to help them go through what they're going through as they help us with what we're going through. So, yeah, and Xinjiajian's been through ups and downs as with Noise Bridge, the one that I co-founded in San Francisco back in 2007, and all of them. And Xinjiajian, though, keeps going through the ups and the downs and getting better overall over time. And every time I've been there, it's been magic, even when there are serious problems that people are trying to solve. But, that's part of life. Community's hard. Relationships are hard. Community is a multi-way relationship. And it's worth it. If everyone gets more out than they put in, which is the case for all good communities, then it's worth keeping doing it. So as far as I know, Xinjiajian is the only hackerspace remaining in China at the moment. Even through the pandemic, Xinjiajian is doing cool things, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, it does also make me feel good to see them going through all the different ups and downs, and it only comes from the community. And I really like what you said about the process. I think what's important is more than where you're going to arrive or more than the aim. What's important is the journey and the process itself.
Yeah, the process is really so important in life. There's no real goal of life. At the end of life, we're dead, and we only have while we're alive to be doing all the cool things that we can possibly do, plus go through the things that are difficult and challenging, sometimes awful, but that's part of it, the journey as well. And our lives have ups and downs, and we need to have support. It's way better anyways to have support to get through all of that and to share what we learn with other people and help others around us. So yeah, the journey, that's where it's at. We have things, I've got this thing, I'm talking to you on this thing, and you're talking, and you got that thing pointed at me, and we can do cool things. That's not the important part. It's the connections we make, what makes us feel like our lives are meaningful, that's important. And that changes over time, and that's the journey of life, and that's what and that journey itself I find meaningful. So
yeah, it's the beauty and the magic of life. To go back to what you were telling me just before about of course there is those hacker spaces that are like how do you say, productivity, capitalistic interest, and so on. But that's not what I want to talk about. But it's kind of made me want to ask something. Is when you were in the first hacker spaces, let's say in America, you were focused on your own, let's say, mad projects. No, or I could say mad or meaningless projects, not seeking for result, more into a process, I imagine. And but while still being focused on meaningless projects just for the purpose of doing it, you eventually received some fund. Did you?
Yeah. So it's not meaningless if it's enjoyable. And at first, when people come to hackerspaces, quite often they don't really know what it is that's meaningful in their life, because none of us are really trained to make time to explore and find things that are meaningful, that are cool, that are super enjoyable, that are wonderful, the things we really, really want. We don't know because we've never given ourselves time. We've never felt we've had permission to do that. We gone through so many years of school where we're sitting in rows and columns with an authority at the front and bells ringing every hour. And we're supposed to compete with each other and just do better on tests, etc. You know, and our parents are pushing us to be successful in a very narrow realm. And don't know. So when people go there and they see something that's just cool, it's totally great to do that thing. Even if it's not changing the world, it still has some meaning because it's part of the process of them making time to explore and find things in their life that they can find meaningful, you know, and that in and of itself has meaning. You know, even if it's just blinking an LED at first, that's really, really cool. Or if it's making a dress or a hat or a painting, doing something with some bacteria in a dish, whatever it is, it doesn't have to change the world to feel meaningful. But the thing is, people are starting a journey of exploration and being supported in a community that is there for that. And that leads to things that are way more meaningful over time. And it can take time, but you know, there's no rush. There's no more points for doing things quicker. Each of us goes through our life's journey in our own way. We all have our own path. And with community, we can do that so much nicer. It's so much, it feels more warm and fuzzy. There's ups and downs, of course. So there's parts that are difficult, but getting through that again, we feel better in our lives. We're more capable. We have more accomplishments to draw from. We have more confidence. So it helps us along the way. And then if we do find projects that we find meaningful, whether it's music or art or a tech thing, something that other people find meaningful, you know, and we have a weird incentive system in our economics all around us, which is mostly capitalism. In capitalism, people pay for what they need or want, or what they're manipulated into thinking they need or want, even if they don't. But if someone finds something truly meaningful, and they have money to pay for it, they will pay you for it. And that's the quick thing to start a startup for, and not just to get rich. You know, what the hell are you going to do with money? If your life isn't meaningful, it doesn't matter how much money you have, life still sucks. But if your life is meaningful, it also doesn't matter how much money you have. Your life is meaningful and it's worth living. You need enough in our capitalism, that incentive system, to buy food and shelter. That's super important. Without that, we can't make time for anything else. And too many people are struggling. But if we have a supportive community, and hackerspaces are one form of community that can do this, then we can be supported into finding meaningful ways of getting enough resources to live a life we find meaningful and worth living. So that's the thing. And startups can be a resource. Investors could be a resource, even if usually they're not. They usually get in the way, and they're usually there only for maximizing their own profit and not for the benefit of anyone else, including their own, only for financial gain. So, yeah, of course, these are all my opinions. And
no, that sounds great. And in the same time, I think your words are great inspiration at the same time for the creator as well as for the investor. All you said is great words for both of those two sides, I believe.
Yeah, you know, there aren't too many, but there are investors who are investing what they have, resources, money being one of them, into things they find meaningful, and helping others to put their ideas, making them real and putting them into the world so that they can share it with other people. And that would be beautiful. And along the way, people can make enough money to live lives that they love living. We don't need all that much. It's not about the money. You know, money's just one resource. We have all these resources, like all these things I pointed out before. But what do you do with them? If you just have a room full of cameras and don't do anything with them, or just use them to do things you don't enjoy or like at all, then what's the point? We have to, well, we don't have to, but we can take these resources and do things that we think are awesome with them. Yeah. Things that are cool, meaningful, and share them with others, help those around us so that we feel better and others feel better. Money's just one of those things.
It's somewhat what we are talking about today because, as you know, Shanghai is under a very strict lockdown. is people cannot get out of their house. All the shops are closed, the supermarkets are closed, most of the hospitals are closed. There is no taxi, no public transportation. Everybody in their homes, and actually, it's been a bit difficult to be able to get some food. And the city is delivering a bit of food, but not to everybody. It's quite a situation that these days everybody is talking about food. A lot of people are feeling depressed, and actually, it's a strong feeling, but it's important to go through that phase. I think for a lot of people to realize that they can actually connect to their essence. Are you here?
Oops.
Yeah.
My video went away.
It's okay. And it's like you say, a lot of people, I think nowadays, are realizing how important the small things are, and how less important the things they valued as more valuable are actually maybe less valuable. And so they're reconnecting their essence to more meaningful considerations and understandings of their how do you say, their existence in a big word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did my video come back on?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, like even terrible things can have positive consequences, even if many of the consequences are also terrible. Living through a pandemic is certainly not what hardly anyone would choose to do. But we can make the best of the situation and promote any positivity we can from it. Sure. And it can rearrange people's priorities, but mainly, what do each of us choose as a result of the circumstances in our life? And I'm lucky that the pandemic hasn't affected me too much in a very direct personal way. I've been healthy throughout. I know some people who are not, who didn't get through so well, and some people are no longer with us, and this is really sad or really difficult because their livelihood went away. Many artist friends had opportunities destroyed because of the pandemic, and musician friends and performer friends. I mean, all this stuff was just shut down and they've had no income. Fortunately, here in Berlin, there's some money for people so that they can survive through this. Other places in the world, not so much. I've been lucky that I haven't been really hit by it. I've been had enough savings so I didn't have to make money, but it turned out that I could help small companies that needed help even through the pandemic as a consultant, which is what I've done a lot of my life. And so I've had extra resources and time and energy that I can support other people through this, which feels really good to me, and helping other people if they feel better as a result, that also feels good to me. And other people have seen that they really don't want to spend so much time working at a job they don't like, and the job's disrupted, so they don't have to go back to that job they don't like. They can find other ways of using their time to get resources that they need to live the lives they want to live. And wow, most people I know have been making these kind of choices and finding new ways of making use of their time and energy to make their life better and the life of others around them better.
That's the
one interesting thing when what's that?
That's the beautiful part of it. It's the bright side.
Yeah, and when when a bunch of people have something negative happening out of their control, people can come together and support each other. And for some people, for many people in these kind of disastrous situations, it might be the first time in their life where they've not necessarily even by choice, but where they've come together and are emotionally engaged with other people. And that aspect feels really great. And even if the surrounding circumstances are anything but great, the emotional engagement with other people involved with each other in a meaningful way feels really good. And that's what will move forward for everyone who survives. That's what will move forward and what people will take with them with the rest of their lives. And that can be very positive. So all of us, especially if we're part of a supportive community, can lend any extra energy and time we have for promoting that. And perhaps that can change our futures in a more positive way.
You're such a positive person. Like, even though you are in Berlin right now, I am in Shanghai right now. I deeply feel your vibe in a sort of way, and it makes me feel very warm right now, and I really appreciate it. It's great. And
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah,
Can connect.
yeah, it's great. And well, I'm gonna get back to you in a sort of way, even though it's all been you until now. And I guess it's always been you, and it will always be you through your words and your breath. So you've always been an independent thinker, I sort of feel, and an innovator in your own ways. And you usually walking on the undefined walkways. You're not the one to walk on the paved ways, the paved walkways. So I would like to ask, do you have a memory of something struck you, like a strike, thunder strike, or something touched you or inspired you at first, made you turn yourself more into the, how can I call this, the more exciting part of the woods is where the walkway is not paved inside the woods and you can go explore. Is there something in particular that made you go that journey, that process way?
Yeah, so my so I have to give a little background to explain that, so it makes sense. My childhood was really awful. I was horribly depressed. My parents turned out to be, lucky for me, very interesting humans as adults, but they were really awful parents in many ways. And growing up, I was bullied, beaten up by bullies every day in school. And back then, teachers just watched while it happened. I was a weird kid. I was afraid of other kids. And the more I got beaten up, the more afraid I was of other kids. And I was afraid of the teachers because they just sat there watching as I got beaten up. So clearly they weren't the people who I should be looking to for support. My parents were depressed also. They didn't know what to do with even their own pain. They didn't know what to do with mine. So yeah, I just tried to escape the pain and turn off my horrible noise-making machine. Wonderful at times, but anyways, yeah, I tried to escape the pain as much as I could, and the thing at hand was television, and I escaped into television, and that made it way worse because it just took all my time away by my own choice, unconscious choice. But the television content providers were there only to have power over the other people and also to manipulate all of us to buy stuff we don't want or need. As a little kid, I didn't really see that, but I felt manipulated, even if I couldn't articulate that. I was comparing myself to all the beautiful kids who had wonderful lives or lives with problems that got solved every half hour. And my life wasn't like that. So I compared myself to that, and they were okay. I wasn't. Clearly, I deserved the horrible treatment I got from bullies. Clearly, I didn't deserve to have a wonderful life with loving parents, etc. And yeah, anyways, it was horrible. And after going through that and seeing what people are supposed to do, like I was brought up as lower middle class in the United States of America, and the journey that was laid out before me was already determined. I would grow up, I would, if I could, do well on tests, and then go to a university and do well there, and then get a good job, in quotes, and then get married, and then have kids, and then retire from some good job, well-paying job, and then die. And that just sounded totally, horribly depressing to me. Not that all of those elements are bad, but for me, that was not a recipe for me to live a life that I felt was worth living.
About what age that
realization? And going through all of that.
About what age you had this realization?
Oh, this was all this. Going through this stuff as a kid. So like from age 0 on up, I was just watching television because that's all there was. And I remember at age 5, seeing my parents, and in the US and other places in the world, but in the US, the question that adults ask kids is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because that's like the center, supposed to be the center of your whole life is your job, right? That defines you. And so I didn't want to grow up if it meant getting a job and just doing all this stuff and that whole path that was already determined for me. And, I was 5 years old when this was just like a ton of bricks coming down on me. And it's like, there's no way I could have survived if I had that in mind, that's what I was going to do. So I knew I wasn't going to do that. And, in age 5, I didn't know I was gay. I couldn't articulate that, but I knew I didn't want to get married and have kids. And, and this is part of why other kids were beating me up, and that I was intellectual and liked learning and wasn't competitive and wasn't good at sports. And I never cared who won a game. I didn't care if I lost or won. I liked the process. And if I could learn stuff and whatever, but otherwise it's so important to win. And that just felt so bad to me. And people were treating each other with so mean, especially competitive team sports. And I was terrible at it. And I was terrible at it because I didn't care who won and other people did. And I just didn't put time and energy into it. I was putting time and energy into TV and not anything useful. And sports wasn't for me. And so being bad at sports, I got beaten up for that too. And this went on all the way through high school until everyone was just getting high. This was the 1970s in the United States. And that was when everyone was just getting high. So high school, people were getting high and no one anymore. We were just getting high together. And in a way that kind of saved me, but it also gave me my new focus of addiction to escape my pain. And I learned a lot from it, but it took away a lot. And I had to go through a few different addictions before I finally realized that, I really do, somewhere deep inside of me, want to live. And I didn't know what it would mean to actually live, because all I've had up until high school was just pain and suffering and depression. And, I had enough food to eat. I was lucky that way. But as far as emotional well-being, it was just constant struggle just to stay alive. And so discontinuities, but I wanted to live. I didn't know how I would live, but I knew I couldn't do what I was only do what I was supposed to do, because I wouldn't have survived. I constantly blame myself for being a terrible person that didn't deserve to exist, and other people beat me up all through those years, which proved to me, my little teenage mind, that was true. And so I knew I had to do something different. I was forced to, if I wanted to live. And in a way, a bizarre way, as an adult now, looking back on those years, in a way I was lucky to have been horribly depressed, because it forced me to find ways of living that were really good for me, which also included people around me. And because the only way I could feel good was if I'm in a community of people who feel good having me around. And I found that occasionally there would be a supportive teacher, and I was really lucky to have that. And it felt good for me to pay that forward to other people.
This is what I call a like-hearted community. Is people who are on a similar heartbeats, let's say, connected to their. It's even beyond the body, but we have to live inside this body, at least for this life. And I like to call it this like-hearted community. And it doesn't. It's not so much about time. It's not so much about responsibility. Everyone is an individual, but at least we communicate together. And you had the time earlier to read the other day the manifesto of ReCharge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly what we aim at with this community. We want to find some, create some tools to kind of create a common ground for, I don't want to call them isolated creatives, but a bit of people who are hardly finding their siblings or their peers or their siblings, and we want to in some way filter the noise of the environment, and in the same way like you did with your remote control TV Be Gone, you know, it's hard to filter this annoying noise. I mean, I love noise, you know, I make noise music myself, but it's not the same kind of noise we're talking about.
Noise by choice is much better than noise
Yeah.
being imposed on our environment.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then internet is also so filled with this not by choice noise, and that's a bit what we're aiming at with the Recharge community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because our society in many ways is designed to keep us separate. There's aspects that allow us to come together, which are great. But when we're all individuals competing with each other, each having our own thing for doing whatever the thing is supposed to do, rather than sharing the things so that we have more resources all together. Our society isn't set up that way, but that doesn't mean we can't set up our own communities to be that way, and we can. And so coming together in community of artists to inspire each other, encourage each other, to share our inspiration as well as other resources, then we can live in an environment with lots of noise imposed upon us, and still make our own beautiful noises.
Yeah.
Individually and together.
I think noise is actually, when it's meaningful and a choice, is music to my ears.
Yeah.
And
And John Cage proposed that in the 1950s. So, any sound, others might consider it noise, but if we call it music, it is.
yeah, same as you amplify silence, or you listen to the silence, is actually the composition made by the cosmos.
Yeah.
And
In our place.
well, actually, I was about to ask you a question from another member of the Shinchejian, but before that, I'm gonna share just to you a little game I have, and you might want to play it with some of your friends. It's so imagine you are three people and you are walking in the streets. It's a game you can play anywhere at any given time, but it's better not to be in apartments. So one after the other, you're gonna become the composer, but you're not gonna make music, or you're not gonna compose anything. You're just the composer, which means you're gonna say when the music starts and when the music stop, and also before you say start, you have to say about how long will be your track. So maybe the track average time is 2 minutes. You could say my track is going to be 1 minute, or let's say 5 minutes if you are very ambitious. And then what the two other persons do after you say clap starts, they listen to the silence of now. And so if it's in the street, you're going to be listening to whatever happens in this moment. Let's say my track is 2 minutes. During 2 minutes, we're going to be listening to now, the moment. And actually, some very magical things happen during this game. There could be like a couple passing by and just saying a couple keywords while they're next to you. And then following those two keywords, there might be like a bus making a weird squishy noise, or that you could hear somebody fighting in an apartment. You hear like all those kind of dimensional sounds that usually you wouldn't pay attention to. So it's actually your composition when you say clap, and then you say clap when it's finished. And then the group of three people continue walking in the street, and then it's the turn of the next person to be the composer.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of
yeah, and then it creates a context for people to read meaning into everything.
Yeah. So now to get kind of inspired from what you were saying just before, that somewhat throughout all your developments and personal experience of growing up and having gone through all those emotions, you kind of opened closer to the community, let's say, and found the community throughout the process of your personal development. I have Chong Bai, who was having a discussion. Chong Bai is often at Shinchejian and doing a lot of the online and many things with the community of Shinchejian. He was having this discussion with Beer Telligence, who is a beer maker and also a member of Shinchejian. And Beer Telligence asked him, well, let's say there's an opportunity for you to go on Mars and build a new settlement for humanity. But the price is that you can't come back and so on. And well, no, what is the question? That you can't come back to Earth. Will you take it? Okay. Well, he's asking if you would go to Mars if you cannot come back on Earth. But, okay, maybe you can answer to that. That's a quick answer, I guess. But I have then following another question is, what of that settlement would you mostly take from Earth, and what in the same time would you not take from Earth, or what special would you make on that settlement? And start a new one. Okay, big blue button. Where's big blue button? Here. Hi, about Mars.
Right? Yeah, so I heard your question about going to Mars if I can't come back, but then the rest, which went on for a while, I couldn't understand it all because it was cutting in and out.
Okay, the rest of the question was, what would you particularly do if you were starting most things from scratch, and what would you mostly not do?
Yeah. So, it's interesting to we're born into a planet that's already been in process for quite a while, and will be continuing long after we're no longer bopping around on it. And especially when we're younger, we see the things that we don't like, and we want those things we don't like to be changed. And we're impatient about it. We want those things we don't like to be changed now. And of course we do, because there are things we don't like. But it takes a long time to see a bigger picture, that things are the way they are for all sorts of historical reasons. And not all those reasons are necessarily worthwhile, but all those reasons are there. And so how do we, and then we create a vision independent of all of that. We create a vision of the world we want to live in, the world we want to exist. How do we get from the world that currently exists to our vision of the world we want to see? There's so many different answers to that. One approach, which I've tried a few different ways, is to just go away from the that existed for so long with all of its baggage, and to try to create something totally new, or take what we like with us, and then with what we like, move forward with that to something better. When I was Um, how old was I then? I was in my 30s. I started what a lot of people would call a commune, but in the 90s we called intentional communities. And so with a bunch of people, we went to rural America and we created a very isolated community in the middle of the forest. And the closest town was 45 minutes away by car driving very fast. And it took a long time to get there, and we were very isolated. And
it makes me think of the commune in Asheville, where I used to be for a while.
You were in a commune in Asheville? Yeah, so this was not all that far from Asheville. It was in central Tennessee. And a lot of things were really cool, especially at first, but rather rapidly, things devolved horribly. I mean, really horribly. It turned into a cult. And there was us inside and there was them outside. And I didn't want to be in an us and them situation. So it was very, very difficult. And I ended up leaving, and it was rather traumatic, but I learned so much from that experience. And this is kind of background for what I wanted to really say. So I've used that in all of my community organizing ever since. We can't really effectively just get rid of what we don't like.
Looks like you're coming back from Mars.
Okay.
It's all good.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, we carry what we like and what we don't like within ourselves from the society we're brought up in. And so how do we deal with that? Well, first of all, we have to look inside of ourselves and see, a lot of people in like a stage in their life, like midlife crisis for a lot of people, they see all the games they played in their life with themselves unconsciously for the first half of their life, and they think, wow, for the next half of my life, what do I want to bring forward and what do I want to leave behind? And if you do that consciously all along the way, it's not necessarily a crisis at a certain age. So we can do that at any age. It doesn't have to be midlife. We can do that continually through our lives. We can see what we've done. We can become more conscious of what we've done, how we've looked at things, what's worked, what hasn't worked so well, and then make use of that to transform ourselves into the person we really more want to be. And we can do that on our own, but we can do that much it's much more fun, and we can do it much better if there's a community of like-minded people who encourage each other for that. And but we have to be conscious of what's inside of ourselves that we've brought with us from the society we were brought up in. If we have to, we don't have to, but it's very helpful to see what we want to encourage from the society, because we're capable of everything, and our society encourages certain things. But if we have our own community, we can encourage some other things that we feel are more important, and we can discourage other things, and we can encourage and discourage these things in very different ways. Some societies and some communities, they discourage by publicly shaming people in horrible ways that feel really terrible, and then people conform into outward behavior out of fear.
Yeah, you don't need
fear
to
of
be,
feeling the
you don't need to be anti something to show your disrespect for or your disconnection from it.
Yeah, there's so many different ways, and so encouraging positivity is perhaps a way that works much better for communities that I want to be part of. And we do need to discourage things that are negative as well, but we can do it in ways that are appropriate for the members of the community, rather than by punishment. We can discourage things in ways that are less harsh, by talking about it. And we're well trained in our modern world to not tell people what we know they don't want to hear or what we believe they don't want to hear. But if we accept that there's always going to be misunderstandings, and we can work things out much better if people bring it up, rather than expecting other people to, like, if I expect you to read my mind that whenever you do some kind of thing with your hand that it bugs me, but I'm just making this up, that's not true. But if that were the case, I can't expect you to know that. I'd have to tell you. And then, over time, maybe you if you cared about me, you would do that less. And if you didn't care about me,
it also works the other way around. Many people think, oh, this person knows I love that person. I don't need to tell him because he knows I love him or her. Actually, that person knows you care, but maybe it's better to also say it.
It's way better to say it, because even if I love a person, they can't know if I'm feeling annoyed by a particular thing. They just know I'm feeling annoyed if they know me well. And then if I don't tell them and I expect them to know why I'm annoyed and they're not figuring it out, now I carry resentments forward, and that builds up, and it's probably happening on the other side as well. And if it's a multi-way community, then resentments are building up in all these ways, and then some stupid little thing comes along that's almost inconsequential, and now everyone's angry at each other, and that's avoidable, but it's not always avoidable. So we have to learn through repetition of negative patterns that we can do things in different ways to avoid those negative patterns and have more time and energy for creating more positive patterns.
So in a way,
so that's all rather
to Mars, you wouldn't bring only the good memories, you would also bring the bad memories.
Yeah, and old behavior patterns that don't necessarily serve us well, that we're not conscious of yet. So, and then if people are, so, I don't know what your experiences were in the community in Asheville, but hopefully they weren't as traumatic and negative an outcome as the one I started in rural Tennessee. But in rural Tennessee, I could choose to leave and bring my experiences with me that I learned and share them with other people to create more positive experiences in other communities and in my life. If I'm on Mars and some of this stuff is happening, that's a very fragile ecosystem, and there's no way to go anywhere else with what you've learned. That's probably something me in my life right now is, I am not going to choose to do that, given my past experiences. But there are these billionaire people that propose that we have a settlement on Mars, and they encourage people to have a one-way trip to Mars. I don't see them saying that they're going to take a one-way trip to Mars.
Yeah.
Those people probably aren't going to learn from their old patterns, and if they're all on Mars, they'll probably just end up murdering each other from any resentments that build up.
But in a kind of way,
I don't want to be.
Haven't you been creating your Mars on Earth already?
Indeed. So, we're all aliens. So, when we create a community, it can be as connected or disconnected from the rest of society as we like. And it's, since that very isolated community experience, I've wanted to do things more in urban environments rather than rural environments, because it's more connected with aspects of society that I do like, with aspects that I don't like as well. But within an urban environment, we can carve out a niche that is our place to do what we like, and that's going to look different for different groups of people in different places on the planet. Here in Berlin, there are many possibilities for creating niches like this. And in China, when Xinjiang was created, there was definitely the opportunity there, and it persists. And but we can draw from the positive aspects that society has created through the eons. And we can, as much as practical, just not so much focus on the negative aspects when it's not affecting us and other people around us. But we can also, when we do that, we can work to share our vision of more positive possibilities with the rest of society so that it has a chance to evolve in a more positive way.
Yeah, I think
So that's the way I.
I think that's very important. Of course, in Berlin there is so many niche, like in Europe, so many subgenres and niche of specialties. But it's very important to open up to the pluridisciplinary, but also to the novice, and invite the novice with some maybe simplified terminologies or acceptable understandings to invite them on surfing the wave of freedom.
Yeah, and we all start off as beginners at some point, and if we find whatever the activity is meaningful or enjoyable or worthwhile in whatever ways, then we can keep doing it. And after 10,000 hours, then we're experts at it, and we can encourage other people and support other people who are beginners to go on this journey with us if they like it. So and creating, there's so many ways of changing the world. Like, I could buy a machine gun and kill a bunch of people. That would change the world, right? It wouldn't change it for the better, but it would change it. So there's also fighting the things that are negative is also going to change the world, and there will be positive and negative aspects of that, like positive and negative consequences for anything. What I choose to do and have chosen to do for a long time myself, and you've touched on this just a bit ago, what can I do with my time and energy that is as positive as I can imagine right now? And then share that with other people, and they can use that as an example, or we can join our energies together to do this together and make it more powerful and make our shared vision of what we feel is positive more likely to happen and more powerful to more people. And if that's maybe the world, we don't know until we try it, and then we see what works, what doesn't, and then learn from that and make new choices and invite as many people as we can along the way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Mitch, it's marvelous. I love our discussion today. And I still have one more question from Shinshoujian. This one is from Julian, who's also one of the main, let's say, holder of the energy of the whole hackerspace. And he's asking you, what do you consider your retirement life? Will it be very different to majority of people? And or as Asian should never have one?
Let's see, I'm not so sure I understand the question. So retirement is this concept that is a bit alien to me. So retirement means that I've had a career and that I've quit the career. So I've never had a career, so I couldn't quit one. So in this respect, I've been retired since I was 5 years old, because I knew I didn't want a career when I was 5 years old. And I've lived a life of, I've had to make money in order to buy food and shelter and the things I want in my life. And so I've had various, mostly freelance jobs, helping small companies and helping friends and stuff. And if they've had enough money to share with me, that's cool. They're cool. So yeah, what is, maybe that's a career, but I don't know. Usually when I think of the word career, I think of getting a job with a corporation and then you get a desk.
Well, I think he's maybe asking, did you ever have a plan to stop answering to new projects or creating new projects, or I don't know, to sit down on a beach and sip on margaritas all day long?
So alcohol and me don't get along, so it's not going to be margaritas. And being on a beach is kind of nice here and there, but overall, if I'm on a beach too long, it's just boring for me. So I like being warm and I like sand. And if there's a bunch of people on a beach doing something cool together, I would love to do that. But just sitting on a beach doing drugs isn't my kind of thing. So, like, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be as happy. Yeah, so my video went away. I got to connect it again. Technology, yay. So
you're on a life mission for perpetual happiness.
Yeah, and it's not perpetual happiness. There's ups and downs of life, but under the circumstances, I'll keep learning from my choices, and I'll keep making new choices as a result of what I know now. And under the circumstances, to make choices to the best of my ability, to be as happy and healthy as I can be under these current circumstances. And of course, that includes the well-being of people around me, because so much of what I find meaningful is in helping other people, supporting other people, so, and being part of community. And this doesn't really, the center of that isn't a job. It isn't making money. It isn't a career. It isn't looking forward to retiring from the career. It's just that continual process. And if I'm really sick, then I can. There's things that I can't do. If body parts, because I'm really old or for whatever reason, aren't working like they used to be, then I can't use them the way I used to use them. Maybe I can't travel as much as I used to. Maybe I have a lot more time because I'm at home a lot more, like during a pandemic, right? And but how do I make use of this and my past experience and the current resources, including the communities I'm part of, so that I'm as happy and healthy as I can be under these circumstances? And we're doing this together, so we support each other in doing all of that. And that can be really wonderful no matter what the circumstances are, even if the external circumstances are awful. Like we were talking about before, there are certain positive aspects that we can bring in and make the best of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite healthy. It takes you for a long journey.
Yeah, and that's as long as we're alive, we're on that journey.
Yeah.
And let's make the best of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mitch. This is great. I'm so happy to have this talk again with you. It's a great moment we just had together, and I'm very touched for the time you took, and I hope things are all right in Berlin. And what time is it again? It's like 2 p.m. or
yeah, it's like 1:30 in the afternoon here. So yeah, which means it's getting later there. Yeah, I hope you do well through the quarantine. That's got to be rough. And
yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty.
Good.
It's just the thing. We don't have too much communication from the government, and it's every day new law and new statements. Not every day, actually. Since a couple of days, we don't know much what's going on, except that we can't get out of our house since some people a month and some people a couple of weeks. But it's
that's not easy. All the best with that, and
thank you.
I hope that the people in local government at least can make some good choices to help everybody.
I'm pretty sure they're trying their best. It's 28 million people to deal with.
Yeah, it's a big city.
Yeah.
Okay, well, take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time too.
No,
really good.
Great.
And we'll see each other again.
Yeah.
Whether there or here or Paris or whatever.
Sure.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.